The closest Build-A-Bear workshop to my house is about a 2-hour drive away. Normally, that wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. But when the passenger is a 4-year-old who just watched a commercial for a cute sparkle bunny, it becomes a different story entirely. The meltdown started the moment the advertisement ended. Jacqueline. Jack started screaming like the world was ending when I told her we weren't driving 2 hours for a stuffed toy. That's exactly why I prefer Netflix over cable TV. No ads, no sudden obsessions over toys that trigger nuclear-level tantrums. Because realistically, I wasn't about to drive 4 hours round trip with a screaming toddler, just to spend $30 or $40 on a plush she'd ignore in 3 weeks. Still, her birthday was coming up, and between work and raising Jax, I barely had time to breathe, much less browse Amazon or go to a physical store looking for gifts. That night, while I tucked her into bed, she sniffled into her pillow. "I want the cute sparkle bunny, Mama. I need it." Her voice had downgraded from screaming to quiet whimpering, but the obsession clearly hadn't faded. "I know, baby girl," I told her gently. "Tell you what, we'll go shopping Friday, okay? Maybe you'll find something even more sparkly." Jax wasn't convinced. She mumbled something under her blanket, while clutching one of her old stuffed animals. I kissed her forehead and turned off the light. Maybe she'd forget about it by morning. I could only hope. Later that evening, I sat down with my laptop and opened my inbox, sorting through work emails. Near the bottom sat the usual promotional message from eBay, something I normally deleted without thinking. But this time an idea hit me. Maybe someone was selling the bunny there. It would definitely be cheaper, and if I was lucky, it wouldn't be too worn out. 5 pages of searching later, I found one. Brand new. $20. Buy it now. Perfect. I ordered it immediately. Half of me wanted to wake Jax and tell her right then, but the rational side of my brain reminded me that 4-year-olds need to learn that no means no. The package arrived the day before her birthday. I opened the box and pulled the bunny out. It looked exactly like the one from the commercial. White fur, glittery ears, big plastic eyes. When I squeezed it, though, it felt uneven, lumpy in places. I shrugged. What did I know about Build-A-Bear toys? Instead of wrapping it, I decided to give it to her early. She'd actually been behaving lately, and I figured rewarding that wouldn't hurt. "Jax," I called from her bedroom doorway. "Yeah, Mama. I want you to know I'm really proud of you. I know you were upset about the bunny, but you handled it like such a big girl." She lit up immediately. "I stopped crying," she said proudly, holding up an old stuffed bear she'd rediscovered that week. "I know you did," I said, "and because of that, happy birthday." I held out the bunny. Jax screamed with excitement, grabbing it and hugging me at the same time. "Thank you, thank you, thank you. She's so cute. I love her." She squeezed the toy tightly, then suddenly paused. "Ow, what's that?" she asked, poking the bunny's back. I took it and squeezed the area she pointed to. "I don't know," I said slowly. "That is kinda weird." Jax didn't care. She grabbed it back instantly and continued hugging it like it was the best thing she'd ever owned. I didn't think much of it, not until a couple nights later. "Mama?" she asked, as I stood in the doorway saying goodnight. "Sparky smells kinda gross. Can you give her a bath?" "Sure," I said. "Tomorrow, okay?" "Tonight?" she asked. "Bear will stay with me." That surprised me a little. But I took the bunny anyway and told her goodnight. The smell hit me almost immediately. I brought the toy closer to my nose to confirm and nearly dropped it when I gagged. What the hell? Surface wash only. Of course. I scrubbed the thing in the sink anyway, soap and water soaking through the fur, but the smell didn't fade. If anything, it got worse. That's when I remembered the lumps. My stomach tightened as I pressed along the bunny's back again. There was no way this was normal stuffing. I grabbed a pair of scissors and cut a few stitches. The moment the seam opened, the smell exploded outward, rotting, thick, unbearable. I gagged as I pulled the seam wider and peered inside. Then I stumbled backward. The bunny slipped from my hands. Tiny bones spilled onto the floor with a clattering sound. A small, mangled head rolled partly out of the torn fabric, gray matter and dried blood oozing onto the white fur. I threw a towel over the thing immediately. Then I ran. I grabbed Jax and took her to the neighbor's house before calling the police. I didn't want details. I didn't want explanations. I didn't want to know whose child that was, or what kind of monster had done it. The eBay account I bought the bunny from had already been deleted. Eventually, they caught the person responsible. That was all I needed to know. Jax never had to hear any of it. I spent that night and most of the next day crying, trying to process what I'd seen. Eventually, I forced myself to calm down. My daughter needed a normal mother, not someone haunted by a nightmare. The next afternoon, I went to pick her up from the neighbor's house. "Mama, look!" Jax shouted excitedly. My stomach dropped. "Jax, baby, where did you get that?" She held up the bunny. "My new friend gave it to me," she said happily. "I met her this morning. She said thank you for cleaning Sparky." She tossed it into my arms before skipping toward our house. I stared at the toy. The police had the original. This couldn't be the same one. Yet here it was. Perfectly clean. White fur shining. A gentle rose scent drifting from it. A small hand touched my arm. I turned. A little girl stood beside me. She couldn't have been much older than Jacqueline. She smiled softly. A cold chill crawled down my spine as I reached out and brushed my fingers through her hair. It felt soft, cold, almost damp from the direction of the house. Jax called for me. I looked toward the door for just a second. When I turned back, the girl was gone. I looked down at the bunny in my arms. "You're welcome, sweetheart," I whispered. Like a lot of people during the COVID-19 pandemic, I started using DoorDash a lot more than I used to. Working from home made it easy. Too easy, actually. As everything shut down and the world shrank into apartments and screens, I drifted deeper into my already antisocial habits. Before COVID, I was close to being a hermit. After COVID started, I basically was one. That's when Cindy appeared. Cindy was one of those people who seemed to carry sunshine around with her. Middle-aged, cheerful, blonde hair streaked with silver, always smiling. Somehow, she became my regular delivery driver. I always thought Dashers were assigned randomly, but no matter how often I ordered, it seemed to be Cindy ringing the bell every time. She'd hand over the food bag and flash that wide grin. "Here's your order, darlin'." Then she'd wink, climb back into her purple Chrysler PT Cruiser, and wave as she drove away. At first, I ordered once or twice a week. Then life got rough. Work stress piled up. Personal stuff fell apart. My days blurred together in that gray pandemic haze, where time doesn't move forward so much as it leaks away. Soon Cindy was showing up 2, 3, sometimes 4 nights a week. Somewhere along the way, she started lingering. Instead of rushing off to the next delivery, she'd lean against the railing of my porch while I unpacked the food. Eventually, we started sharing a beer. Only one more, Cindy would laugh. "Can't have too many or you'll have to take my keys." She was friendly, maybe a little intense, but harmless. If she stopped by late in the evening, we'd sit outside, drinking and pointing out constellations. Cindy never talked much about her life outside the job. I didn't either. Sometimes it was nice to just sit quietly with another human being. Then I met Morgan. It happened on one of my rare walks through the neighborhood. Her dog had slipped its leash and bolted down the street. I helped her chase it down. The connection was immediate. For the first time in months, maybe years, I started waking up smiling. I started taking care of myself again. Exercising, cooking, going out instead of ordering takeout constantly. I cut it back from 4 times a week to twice to once. Eventually, I skipped an entire week without opening DoorDash. My wallet felt better. My waistline did too. One night, I stepped outside for a walk and noticed a familiar purple car parked across the lot. Cindy was sitting on the hood reading a book. "Hiya, Dave," she said brightly when she saw me. I walked over. "Hey, Cindy. Long time no see, stranger." I felt strangely guilty. "What brings you around?" I asked. "Just another delivery nearby," she said. "Thought I'd swing by and check on you." "Oh, yeah, I'm good. Just cutting back on takeout." Her smile stayed in place, but something behind it tightened. "Everything all right?" "Yeah, just saving money." "Oh," she said quickly. Sure. I get that." She hopped down from the hood. "Tell you what, next time you order, I'll try to hook you up with some extras. I know most of the restaurant folks around here. You don't have to do that." But she was already climbing back into the car. "Don't worry about it, darling. Old Cindy will take care of you." She waved as she drove off. Later that night, I canceled my DoorDash premium membership. It seemed like a good time. A few nights later, Morgan came over. We were on the couch watching a horror movie in the dark, sharing a giant bowl of popcorn. I was eating it faster than necessary, hoping maybe once the bowl was empty we'd sit a little closer together. On screen, a monster was creeping down a set of attic stairs. That's when my living room exploded with white light. "What the heck?" Morgan said. "Someone's brights are on." "Yeah," I muttered, standing up, pointed right at the window. I stepped outside. The light was blinding. "Hey, asshole!" I shouted. "Your brights are on." No response. After a moment, I went back inside. Before I could reach the couch again, honk! The horn blasted outside. I rushed back out, but the car was already leaving. Just fading taillights disappearing down the street. For a second, half blinded by the glare, the silhouette looked familiar. The next morning, Cindy knocked on my door. She held a pizza box. "Hey, stranger," she said cheerfully. "Pepperoni and olives." I blinked sleep from my eyes. I didn't order anything. "On the house." Her smile stretched unnaturally wide. "No thank. I insist." She shoved the box into my hands. We stood there awkwardly for a few seconds. Then Cindy tilted her head. "Who's your friend?" "What friend?" "The brunette," she said. "Pretty one." "Oh, Morgan. Pretty name. How did you—" "Oh, here and there," she said lightly, heading back to her car. "You enjoy the pizza." I watched her drive away. Then I walked across the lot and dumped the box straight into the dumpster. The following week felt strange. I kept seeing what looked like that purple Chrysler PT Cruiser around town, passing slowly while I grocery shopped, turning corners when I went jogging. I told myself I was imagining things. Everything else in my life was improving, until Morgan sent a text. She said she was getting back together with her ex. She didn't want to see me anymore. That single message shattered more of me than I expected. Soon I was back to old habits, sleeping too much, eating junk, zoning out in front of the computer. The only thing I didn't return to was DoorDash. So I was surprised when Cindy knocked on my door a few days later. She held a big bag of Chinese takeout. "Hey, stranger." "Hey, I know you didn't order," she said, "but I had a feeling you might need cheering up." She listed everything inside: dumplings, General Tso's, egg rolls, tempura, udon. I hesitated, but then I remembered those quiet nights on the porch, counting stars. Some days you just need a friend. "Want to come in?" I asked. She smiled. We spread the food across my kitchen table. For a while we didn't talk at all. We just ate. And honestly, it might have been the best Chinese food I'd ever tasted. Finally, I leaned back. "Amazing," I said. "Good," Cindy replied, eyes bright. "You know I'm always here if you need someone to listen." "Thanks, Cindy." She popped the last piece of egg roll into her mouth. "How's your little friend?" she asked casually. "Morgan." I sighed. "We're not really friends anymore." Cindy leaned forward slowly. "Yeah? Had your life turned upside down?" Her smile widened. "You have no idea," she hissed softly. "We had a good thing going. Then you threw me away for the first girl who batted her eyelashes at you." "What?" "That Morgan was trouble," Cindy said. "I did you a favor." My stomach tightened. "What are you talking about? You stopped ordering, stopped talking to me." Her voice sharpened. "You didn't leave me any options. I had to stop her. I don't understand." "Call her," Cindy said sweetly. "What?" "Call Morgan. I promise she'll answer." Something in her tone made my hands move before my brain could stop them. I dialed. A ringtone sounded. From Cindy's pocket, she pulled out Morgan's phone. "Hey, stranger," Cindy said. My blood ran cold. "What did you do?" Cindy tilted her head. "Did you enjoy the dumplings?" I looked down at the meat on my plate. Too red. "Everyone trusts DoorDash," Cindy giggled. "They always open the door." Her laughter grew louder. "Morgan was a little stringy," she continued, "but I added lots of salt." I stared at the food. A strand of black hair poked out of the egg roll wrapper. I staggered back and vomited. Cindy collapsed into hysterical laughter. I ran outside, dialing 911. Behind me, she shouted after me, "Come back, Dave!" Her laughter echoed across the parking lot. "I'm always here if you need an ear, or a lung, or a heart." Last November, my house was broken into and robbed. I came home to find the lock on my front door had been smashed in with a hammer. Inside, my house looked like a bomb had gone off. Cabinets were hanging open or broken, clothes were scattered all over the floor, and there were even a few holes punched into the drywall. All of my electronics were gone. My PC, my game consoles, the TV, and even my brand new speakers. The bastards even stole my cheap homemade coffee table. It was barely more than plywood and scrap lumber I had thrown together and painted red, but it was mine, damn it. I did my best to clean up while taking pictures of everything for the police report. The creeps had even used my bathroom and didn't bother to flush. It felt so petty. "Is there anyone you know of that might want to target you?" the officer asked when I called the station. "No," I said. "I don't really have any enemies." I heard the woman on the phone pop her gum. "I'll be honest with you," she said. "We can open a report, but without something more concrete, the chances of finding the suspects are maybe 15%. You don't happen to have any cameras in your home, do you? Or one of those video doorbells that might have caught something? No. The officer sighed. Okay, maybe we'll get lucky. After that conversation, I felt completely deflated. It looked like I wasn't going to recover any of my property, which meant my only option was to start replacing things myself. The next few hours dragged by. No TV, no games, nothing to do. I could only scroll through the internet on my phone for so long before the boredom became unbearable. I needed something back, so I opened Craigslist and searched for speakers. At the very least, those were something I could afford to replace. For once, it seemed like luck was on my side. The very first listing I found was perfect. The speakers were cheap, nearby, and the exact same model that had been stolen from me. I messaged the seller, and he replied almost immediately. He said he could make the exchange tonight if I hurried over. Since I was desperate to get out of the house, I agreed. After more than an hour of driving, I finally found the place. A narrow dirt road led back to an old hunting cabin. It was a squat, white building. Or at least it used to be white. Time and weather had stripped most of the paint down to bare wood. Vines crawled up one side of the house like a green web. For a moment, I considered turning around. But I'd already made the drive, so I figured I might as well see if the speakers were real. The man who answered the door looked like someone had made a human being out of denim and cigarette ash, and cursed it with life. "You, the guy?" he asked from the doorway, shirtless. He looked about 60 years old, with matted gray hair and a salt and pepper beard. He was tall and lanky, and his voice sounded so rough it felt like the words scraped against his teeth on the way out. "Hey, yeah," I said awkwardly. "I contacted you on Craigslist about the speakers." The man spat something into the bushes beside his porch. Then he nodded once and motioned for me to follow him. The inside of the cabin was even worse. Musty furniture with chewed-up cushions filled most of the main room. Stacks of cardboard boxes leaned against the walls like unstable towers. The floor was partly carpeted, partly bare wood. "In the back," the man muttered, pushing through a ratty curtain. I followed him. The cabin smelled like mildew and stale air. The back room was even more cluttered than the front. Boxes and containers were everywhere. There were piles of toys, power tools, and items still sealed in packaging. And guns. Lots of guns. Some hung on the wall. Others sat in cases. A few were just lying out in the open. I was so busy staring at everything that I slammed my shin into a small table. The old man was rummaging through a pile in the corner. When I looked up, he turned and held out a speaker. $30, he said. The ad said 25. Processing fee. Okay, I said, reaching for my wallet. Then I froze. The speaker wasn't just similar to the one I'd lost. It was identical. Even the small scuff mark on the top from when I dropped it weeks ago was still there. Slowly, I looked down at the table I had bumped into. Small, crude, red, my table. "Something wrong?" the man asked. "Where did you get all this stuff?" "That's not your business." I pointed at the speaker. "That might not be my business, but that is my property. It was stolen from my house." The man slowly set the speaker down. "Are you calling me a thief?" I shrugged. "Maybe, or maybe you bought it from whoever robbed me. Either way, it's stolen property. The table, too. Hell, I bet half my stuff is in here." "Get out of my house," the man hissed. "Not until." The old man reached into his pocket and pulled out a large folding knife. With a flick of his wrist, it snapped open. I backed out of the house immediately. He followed me outside, the knife held low near his waist, his eyes locked on mine. "If I ever see you again," he said, "I'll stick this knife in your belly button and open you up like an envelope." "You're fucking nuts," I said. He spat on the ground, calling me a thief. "You dirty little roach." I don't think I've ever driven as fast as I did that night leaving that cabin. When I got home, I tried to lock the door before remembering the lock had been destroyed during the break-in. Instead, I pushed my couch against the door. Then I called the police. 2 officers drove out to the cabin, but no one answered when they knocked. Without a warrant or probable cause, they said the best they could do was return in the morning. That night, I went to bed frustrated and exhausted, but I couldn't sleep. Hours passed. Then I heard something. A scraping sound at the front door. My couch began to move. Someone was pushing their way inside, and instantly I knew who it was. There was a large oak tree growing close to the side of my house. I opened my bedroom window, climbed onto the branch, and carefully climbed down. Then I ran to my neighbor Benny's house. Benny looked shocked when he opened the door, but he let me inside. I told him everything: the robbery, the cabin, the knife, and the noise at my door. We called the police, turned off the lights, and waited. 5 minutes later, a single cruiser pulled up outside my house. Benny and I walked out to meet the 2 young officers who stepped out of the car. Together, the 4 of us walked down my driveway. Inside the house, one of the officers noticed something immediately. Dirt, footprints. They led straight down the hallway to my bedroom. The officer followed them. Then he stopped. Under my bed, lying flat on his stomach and gripping a small bag tightly, was an old man. The same old man from the cabin. Inside the bag was a 9mm pistol. Apparently, the creepy bastard had come back to kill me. Later, the police recovered all of my stolen property from the man's cabin. They also found thousands of dollars worth of stolen items from other robberies. It turned out he had been running a burglary ring, stealing items, and selling them online through Craigslist. When I showed up at his cabin and recognized my belongings, I threatened his entire operation, so he decided to silence me. To this day, I'm grateful I trusted my instincts that night. If I hadn't barricaded the door, or climbed out that window, or run to Benny's house, I don't even want to imagine what might have happened.